Okay, today I'm going to show you how to create what I call Ryan-Higa sliding graphics. Hopefully this video won't go too long. I don't know how long it might go, maybe 10-15 minutes. But at the end of it, you should have the skills you need to create these kind of graphics. These graphics actually add a nice professional touch to whatever type of video you're making, whether it's a comedy such as he makes or a more serious piece of work, which I actually think that he was trying to make fun of a more serious production level. But anyway, let's get started. So you can see right now I have 4 video tracks on in Vegas, and this is Vegas 14 that I'm using. What I've done is I'll just start over here because I got started. I didn't realize I wasn't recording. We're just going to go into Media Generator and we're going to drag down the legacy text. I'm just going to put it on the second track here. So I'm going to start by typing in the text that I want. So I click in the text box, I hit Control A to select everything and delete. And then I think his first thing said avoid trendy topics. So I'm just going to type that in like that. As you can see, that's way too big. So if I click over here on properties, I can quickly just scale that down. So, and I think that's about the size he had it. And this particular graphic came in from the left side. So what we're going to do first is we're actually going to create the graphics, and then we're going to add them and animate them to the video, and you'll see how that process works. I think it's helpful to think of Vegas Pro as actually being Photoshop. It has the, I would say 30 to maybe 40% of the functionality that Photoshop has. So once you get to know how Vegas works, there's really no need to go into Photoshop to create graphics. You can create them right here in Vegas, but sometimes you do have to be a little creative in some workarounds. So anyway, as far as basic text goes, that's not a problem. So anyway, he had avoid trendy topics. That was his first thing. He had it in white, I believe. So I have it on the second track. I'm just going to drag it down to the third track. Now we're going to add another text box, and I think it said lesson 1. So again, we click in the text box, Control A, and I know for a fact that this was much smaller font, so I'm just going to change the size right now to 24, and I'm just going to change the text box to 24. Type in lesson 1, and as you can see, we're in the center. So what I can do is reposition that and just drag that up. If you look, right, it was right about there. It's good. And he had it a different color, so you can just go into properties and change it to whatever color you had. He had something like maybe like that. Maybe it was a little darker blue or something. Maybe it was a nice color. I remember whatever it was. We'll just leave it like that. Now, the one thing that he had that it sounds like the Wizard of Oz, the one thing he had that you don't have, the one thing he had was a line that went underneath here. So that's where we have to get it creative because we don't have a line, but we can make one. So what we do is we're going to go back into Media. Oh, let's not do that. Let's just duplicate this track here since it's already the right color that we want. And go copy, and we're going to go paste right above it. And go okay. Now we click in here, click on that little box, and now what we're going to do is, if you notice, the uppercase I is a line. So what we can do is just resize this. We can make it big, pretty big, and see where that puts us. So we click here underneath the tracks. So that's pretty darn big, right? So what we can do is we can go into pan and crop, and we need to rotate this. And rather than guessing at the rotation, we can just click over here and type in 90. Because then that's going to turn it that way. Then what we can do is a couple things. I mean, there's different ways you can try to get at the same thing. We can go in here to placement and click and drag this. Now you'll notice when you start doing this that your controls are kind of different. So left and right is up and down because we're turned sideways. So it gets a little hard to adjust. So what you can use is actually the arrow keys. But remember, up and down arrow keys are left and right is up and down. So what I'm going to try to do is just line this up using the arrow keys as best as I can. Now that's pretty well lined up. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into pan and crop. I'll close out of this and I'll click pan and crop here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a mask. So I'll click there and I'll click the rectangle tool there. And now I'm just going to click and make a mask and see where this comes out at. So I'm a little off there. and it's a little thinner line. But now what I'll do is I'll click up here on position, and using the arrow keys, I'm going to see, you can tell my position angle change there. So I'm going to put that back at 90. You can just play around with this. There we go. You make sure you click on this window, and then I should be able to hit the arrow key. So I'm hitting the left arrow and is actually taking me up. And that's looking pretty good. So I could go in and trim that down a little bit, but I don't know how. I'm just trying to show you the basics of this. So let's see. I think that looks fine. So as far as I'm concerned, I'm done. I could go and click here in mask, and I could trim that down a little bit to line it up a little bit better, but hopefully you get the basic idea here. So if I trim this down, I could line that up. But what I'm doing here is I'm strictly creating the graphic. I'm not worrying about video or anything. I'm just creating a graphic right now. So I'm pretending, even though I'm in Vegas, that I'm basically in Photoshop, and I'm creating this avoid trendy topics graphics. It's going to come flying in from the left side. So once I got this set up, I'll just go save it as, and I'm going to save it as I'm just going to let it save as its name, image 46. I know what that is. So, and I'm going to make sure you save it as a PNG file and go save. And then I'm basically done with that graphic. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to delete this and this. And if I go into project media, it's right there. So now the other graphic came in from the right side. So I'm just going to keep this for now. And I think he said something to the effect of people really care about it now, or something like that. So what I can do now is I can go into properties here, and there's these settings here, leading, tracking, scaling, and if I hit leading, I can bring that a little bit closer. And then if I go back on edit, I can actually change the alignment. So I'm going to change it to alignment left. Now this graphic too also had a horizontal line. So we're going to do the kind of the same trick here. Before I do that, the one thing to keep in mind is where you're wanting this to come in, because right now it looks like it's centered. So if I know that this text is going to come in up in the upper right corner, then what I can do is I can kind of move it there right now, because that's where I know by going into placement I can just move it over there, because that's where I know that I want it to go anyway. So I might as well make the picture match what I'm needing. So I'm needing it to come in on the left side, so I'll just put it on, the right side. I'll put it on the right side right now. Okay, so now the only thing I got to do this is create the line. So we're going to do the same kind of thing. So I'm going to just copy this, go copy, and we're going to click paste, and I'll go OK. And because it's the same font, it might not be the same font size. So I'll come in here and edit this. So again, I'm going to use the capital I. So if I hit Control A, I can select everything. I hit the uppercase I. And I know this is going to need to be big, so I'm just going to go ahead and make this the biggest font they have available. And we're going to look here and see where that puts us. So that looks pretty big. So what I'll do is I'll go into pan and crop, because we need it sideways, and I'll turn under rotation. I'm just going to type in 90 there. Looking here, I can see that it doesn't look like it's going to be big enough. So I'm going to click in this screen here, and using the arrow keys, I'm going to move this over. I'm going to move this what I've created so far over, and line it up as best I can. And remember, the keys are reversed, so it's kind of disorienting. So the right arrow key is actually down right now. So now I'll get right about there. So the trick is to try to create the graphic where it's going to ultimately end up being. So we'll put that right there. And now what I can do is if I go back, I'll close out of this, and I go back into Media Generator, and I go to Properties. I can scale this up now, and when I do, it's going to be more than big enough for what I need. So I'll try to get it as close as I can to the actual size that I need. So I think that's pretty close right there. So once I have that set, I'm going to go into masking here. Click on masking. It doesn't matter where this is, And I'm going to draw, click on the rectangle tool, and I'm going to draw another mask. And I'll probably, it looks like it's pretty close to the exact size, so I'll try to stay as close to the edges as I can. So I'm just going to drag it and draw a mask, and that looks pretty good. And now I just need to reposition it. So I can click here and position, and click on the screen, and I can use the arrow keys now to reposition this up closer. I think that's close enough. Now maybe that looks a little too thick. I can click back on the masking track here. Let me zoom in a little bit, and I can just, when I see that thing there, I can just thin it out a little bit more. But because I thinned it up now, it looks like I need to push it a little closer. So I'll push on the position button, and now I'll just, oops, I accidentally tweaked something there. So let me see. Am I clicked on the position? Let me see, hold on. Oh, there I go. So it is kind of confusing getting used to these keys, because they're up and down is left and right, and left and right is up and down. So it's a little confusing. But the arrow keys do give you precise control. Okay, so now we've created the graphics. I don't know how long that took. I wasn't timing it, but not very long. It's about as, and the more you do this, the faster you get. If I was just doing the text, I could have done it already, but because I'm dealing with this horizontal line thing, this line graphic, that's taking a little bit more time to be creative about that. But then I'll do the same thing. I'm just going to go in here and click save, and that's going to be image 47. And basically that's it. So we have our two graphics done. Now, the good thing is we are done with all this stuff, and I don't need that anymore. So now I just grabbed this screenshot here. And the beautiful thing now is that I've just got two separate graphic files that I have to work with, and I don't have to worry about finagling anything else around. So he did a couple extra tricks with his things, but let me show you what we're going to do. So we're going to drag this graphic to the top track, and let's say Ryan was talking for a moment about something. This is just a still image, so just pretend it's a video. So he was talking about something, and then if you'll notice, let's say where I want the graphic to come in is right about there, about halfway through the track. I'm just going to click on this track and split it right there, because there's an effect he added. And then for however long I want the graphic to stay on the screen, I'll just stretch this out more so it'll look more like a video. However, let's say it's about 3 or 4 seconds that graphic stays on the screen. So let's say I drag this along. I don't have the slide in effect yet, but let's say I want it on there for, let's see, how long is that? Like 5 seconds or something. Then at the end of that, where that ends, I'll click here, and I'm gonna click split on the video track and make sure these are lined up. Okay, so here's where the first effect comes in. So this slides in. So here he is talking, and then the graphic slides in. So all you got to do that is you go to transitions, and you're going to go to slide. This is going to be from slide in from left to right. So all we got to do is click and put this at the front of that. And if we play it back, this is kind of what we're going to get. Now let's say I want that to slide in faster than that. The great thing about having it as a designated transition versus keyframing it is if you come to on the media track, you'll see the icon is changing. And when it comes to that, what's the fader control, you can slow or speed up the speed of the effect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed it up, and then I'm going to see how I like that. So maybe it was a little faster. It came in pretty quick, I think. Yep, that's maybe a little too fast. Okay, now the other thing he did was he had some Gaussian blur on the effect when that rolled in. So what we'll do is we'll go into the video down here where we split it, and I'm going to click on the effects right there, and we're going to add some Gaussian blur. Go add, okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to keyframe this. So we're going to hit those icons there, And we're going to drag this back to the front. Of course, when it starts, it fades into Gaussian blur. So we're going to just set it like there, and then we'll drag it. We'll drag the cursor out here, and then we'll give it maybe a couple frames to blur. So then I don't think we add a lot of blur, but maybe like about that much. So we just click and drag that. And when you change these controls, it's automatically added. So this is what it'll look like. Yeah, so that's about it. If you wanted to make it blur faster, then you just go into the effect and reposition these. Scoot these down a little bit. If we want it to maybe go within a frame or something like that. So we'll just drag that down, and that should be pretty fast. So let's take a look. Yep, like that, right? And then that graphics on, and then it goes back to him talking. And then he talks for a little bit, and now we want the other effect to come in from the right. So we'll go ahead and just stop it right there. I don't believe he has any Gaussian blur on this one. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our project medias. We'll get this one, and we'll drag it to the timeline. And we go back into transitions, and now we're going to go in slide in from right to left, and we'll just bring it to the front. We'll watch this one come in. He's talking, and it comes in that way. And if you want to reposition it, like let's say you think that's too high, you can reposition it simply by going into pan and crop here, making sure you're in the first position. Well, actually, there's kind of a way to do it here. So we come in here because we have to be able to see it. So we go into pan and crop, and you see we actually need to be able to see it. The keyframe's way over here, but we actually need it way over there. So what we'll do is we'll reposition it to where we want it at this keyframe. So let's say we'll come down a little bit, like right there. And then what we can do is once we've set that position, we can delete this first keyframe and then just drag this keyframe to the front position like that. And then that'll lock our position, our new position. So now it should slide in lower like that. And then again, if you want to speed this effect up, you come here and you wait till it turns to that and just drag it slower like that. And then that transition comes on really fast like that. And then if you want it off the screen, just shorten it like that. So if you don't want it on the screen that long, you could just shorten it. Here we've already matched it to the split, so we'd have to drag the split down and the clip at the same time. And so if we watch it, that's it. So what I'll do is I'll render this out and show you what it looks like compared to what it is. And he also is doing some things with his angles and stuff, but these effects are really add a nice touch, them flying in from the side with the lines on them, the horizontal lines. And so just think of it this way, that Vegas Pro is basically like Photoshop Lite. So you can use it to create most of the graphics that you need, and only in certain circumstances do you really need to probably go into actually Photoshop. But if you can create it in Vegas just by being creative, then I think that's the way to go. Hope you found this helpful. I'm trying to do at least a video a week showing some kind of more advanced editing technique in the program. There's a lot to the program. I use the program every day, and I want it to keep going. So I'm trying to build a community of people that are interested in learning it and want to advance it and want to advance in their knowledge. So please subscribe if you can, and take care and have a great day.